Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us for another Simply seminar. Today's seminar is brought to us by our friends at SanDisk Professional, creators of premium high-quality G-Tech storage devices for all of our backup needs on the Mac. They feature usually a 3 to 5 year warranty on their products, really low failure rates on these, and they've got solid support services should we need it as well. Well, today is World Backup Day, and today's seminar, I'm going to be discussing the importance of why we should be backing up our Mac on a regular basis and how to back up and restore files and computers using Apple's Time Machine and storing this backup on G-Tech's fantastic products. Well, let's start with this. We use our Macs every day for everything in our work, our life. We use it to store and hold precious moments, important information about our lives and work. And let's face it, losing that kind of data can be an absolute nightmare. Additionally, there are times where systems might be hacked or ransomed and whatnot, and having a solid backup strategy using Time Machine is one of the most effective ways that you can kind of protect yourself for those kind of scenarios. I want to share the importance of why backing up is important, and the fact that Apple has some great built-in software to make that easy and set up. We're talking about Time Machine. And in this particular scenario, the most common thing that we want to do is we want to basically try to use a local backup, which means like a G-Tech hard drive, for laptop users or for desktop users that are large enough to kind of hold all the data on our Macs. Time Machine backups are not just an insurance policy; they're a healthy routine, in a healthy routine to be in, and it's something we want to try to do on a regular basis. So we're going to kind of discuss that in a little online demo here on how to get that done. It is very important to make sure that it's happening at least regularly. Time Machine can be set up to kind of back up hourly and automatically if it's always connected, but there are certain times where laptop users are going to want to, we're going to basically want to have different drives available to us to connect at least weekly. At the very least, we want to try and connect these hard drives to our laptops at least once a week minimum. Now, I also wanted to talk about one more thing. We get a lot of customers here in the shop that come in with their Macs and we'll say, hey, you know what? We've had an accident with our system. We've spilled some wine on it, or they've dropped it and something, has happened that's kind of goofed up the machine. A lot of times, people are more concerned about their data that's on these machines than they are kind of getting things repaired in that regard. So, the data is kind of like number one in a lot of cases. And I get a lot of folks in here that basically say, hey, well, I've got no problems. I've got a iCloud backup. Well, I wanted to have a quick note about iCloud or online backups in general. Online backups, at least as far as iCloud is concerned, is not a true backup of all of the data on your machines. So for example, we get a lot of folks that use iCloud Photos. And iCloud Photos keeps a lot of that kind of stuff up in the cloud, but depending on how you've set that up, that may not actually be on the machine. It might be up in your storage locker at Apple. So the important takeaway from that is Time Machine backups on G-Tech drives are only backing up data that is on your machine. This is also important as well because certain things like Dropbox and Google Drive and some of those other services, that content is not actually on the machine, at least most times. It may be set up in such a way where it's syncing. Let's say for the example of Dropbox, we got lots of customers in here who have Dropbox accounts, and they might be working with teams and stuff like that, but that content is up in their Dropbox folder. Now, that's not always the case because some of those Dropbox things or G Drive can sync the data as well, meaning that if a copy is up in the cloud or in Dropbox, there might be a copy local on the computer as well. So you might have to look at those types of things and just see how it's configured. Because if it is syncing to your hard drive, then that will be included in a time machine backup. So I just wanted to have a quick note about that. The only thing that an iCloud backup does entirely are people's iPads and iPhones. And if you ever need questions or a little bit of advice on that, I invite you to come into any of the Simply Computing stores across the province and have a little chat with our one-on-one specialists. Or if you need an in-home service, we do offer Simply at-home services as well. Or if you're in a real bind, come in and see us at the service counter there, and we'd be happy to help you out. All right, so we're going to talk about Time Machine. What is a Time Machine backup? And how to set it up, and how Time Machine actually works. And again, we've already kind of discussed why it's important. Time Machine is a built-in backup application used to keep an up-to-date copy of all of the files on your Mac. Time Machine is unique among most backup applications in that it captures exactly what is on your Mac at any given time from the time that backup occurred. This makes it very easy to recover files, emails, media, and things that have been inadvertently deleted. It is also a fantastic way if you are in the market. Let's say you've got an old machine kind of hanging around, like an old 2011 iMac that's kind of getting a little long in the tooth. We can use a Time Machine backup to restore or migrate the data to a new pre-owned machine or a brand new Mac product if we do need it. And this is exactly what this is for. With a properly formatted hard drive, with a properly formatted and empty external drive, setting up Time Machine is pretty simple. We just connect it to the Mac. And if this is the first time you specified a hard drive, like a G-Tech one, for Time Machine, it's going to ask us to format and do the backup to the Mac. Time Machine will do the initial full backup of your device when it is first set up. So this could take a while, depending on how much data you have. That could be, maybe an hour, or it could be, maybe 4 or 5 hours if you've got a particularly large Mac with a lot of drives on it or a lot of data on it. Once multiple backups have been made, you'll now have the ability to kind of go back in time through the different Time Machine backups and try to find and recover the files that you are looking for. So setting up a time for Time Machine backup, this is going to come down to external drives. And I just want to have a couple of a quick note about this. There's a couple of different hard drives that you can kind of pick. For a lot of our laptop users who are basically picking up the Mac and moving around from place to place and whatnot, having a hard drive connected to the Mac every single time and often can be a little difficult. And it can be a lot of extra cables and whatnot. For a product like this, I generally recommend G-Tech Armors, which you'll see in the slide here is the one on the left. This is a hard drive that can be powered by the laptop itself and doesn't require any additional power supplies and things of that nature. It's just one cable from the Mac to the drive. Additionally, you also might notice too, it's a very rugged system as well. So it can take a little bit of a beating and a drop, making it very suitable for people who are on the move all the time. The next one that we have on the left is SanDisk's new G drive. It's a USB-C based drive and can be connected to things like desktops and towers and things of that nature. They were really designed to be connected to the Mac pretty much at all times, which is kind of like what our desktop Macs, like the iMac, Mac Minis, and things of that nature can be used for as well. The one in the middle is a G Drive Pro. This one steps up its transfer rates a little bit and basically means it's going to be able to back up and restore that much faster as well. They are a little bit more expensive and do connect to Thunderbolt 3, making it ideal for video professionals and creative professionals who need to string together a bunch of different Macs as well. Sorry, drives. Last but not least, we've got a lot of customers out there who have a really cool product that Apple used to make called a time capsule. Time capsules were these great networked attached storage systems and routers from Apple, and they were used in people's homes and set up with their networks so that they could be connected to basically anyone who's connected to the network and has Time Machine activated. Anytime they walk in the house and Time Machine is set up for automatic backups, it would automatically do that. So it's very handy for folks that don't remember to kind of connect their attached hard drive all the time. A lot of those are starting to get long in the tooth, and they're really starting to age out as Apple's not supporting those anymore. So now, if you are one of those users, this might be a great time to consider, coming in and looking at a new drive or a new solution at that point as well. So I'd recommend coming in, booking a one-on-one or simply at home, or coming in and see one of our technicians or the customer service reps at the counter. All right, so how does a Time Machine backup work? On this desktop here, I've got a MacBook Pro, and what I have done on this is I have a backup already done. It's on a G-Tech SSD. That was another product I didn't mention, but if you want really fast backups and restores, an SSD is also pretty solid and very fast at that point as well. But they do cost a little bit more, but they are worth it. They don't suffer the same kind of issues as like maybe a spinning hard drive. They're a little bit more rugged in that regard because there's no moving parts in them. So they're pretty solid for somebody who's on the go at that point as well. I am going to connect a G Drive Armor. That is the one that is one of the rugged systems here. So I'm going to just connect that now, and we should see a hard drive show up on the system. As you can see here, I've just connected the drive, and you should see on your screen a G Drive Armor ATD that we are going to prepare for a Time Machine backup. So now that we have the drive connected, we need to prepare this drive for Time Machine to use. So where we're going to start is this. We are going to go to the Apple icon in the top left, and we are going to call up System Preferences. And once we have System Preferences up and running, we are interested in the Time Machine icon in the very bottom here. And we're going to click Time Machine. So you can see right now from this particular panel that the Time Machine interface is up and running. And what we are interested in is Select Disk. We are going to click that button, Select Disk, and we're going to tell Time Machine to use the G Drive Armor ATD. We're going to select Use Disk, and because I'm using more than one drive, we're going to select Use Both. So in this particular scenario, this is actually kind of handy for folks who are interested in having an off-site backup. You can use two separate drives to contain backups for your Mac as well. This is kind of handy or important if you are worried about maybe a flood or a fire or somebody breaking into your house and they've stolen your Mac and your hard drive. Well, holy Hannah, how do we deal with that now? If you have a second drive set up like this, you can put that somewhere offsite in the safety deposit box or a family member's place. You just have to remember to occasionally bring that in, let's say once a month, whatnot, and perform another backup of your computer and then stash it away one more time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose use both for this particular scenario. And you will see that Time Machine has now found that drive, and it has changed the icon of that drive and added the Time Machine picture to it as well, indicating that when these drives are connected, they are designated or contain Time Machine backups. Once we have a drive connected, you will see that where it says G-Tech Armor, it's going to wait to back up. Now, this might take a little bit of time here, but I wanted to demonstrate how to set up the drive and let it start doing its backup. Now, that first backup, like I said, may take a little bit of time to kind of complete. So I'm not going to kind of go any further with this because this is going to take a little while to back up. In this section here is you will see that there is a little check mark here where it says back up automatically. For iMac users and desktop users, this is a fantastic way to make sure that your backups are happening often in a way that's going to basically have everything contained on here. The important thing is if this is turned on, this device is going to basically back up, every day, on the hour, et cetera, et cetera. The important thing is it's going to be backing up only the data that's changed. So after your first backup, if you downloaded another 20 gig file or something like that, that is going to be backed up to your hard drive as well. We're just going to say stop that backup for a moment. I'm going to unmount the G Drive Armor for the moment. There is one additional checkbox that is on this machine that I do recommend turning on. You will see down here at the bottom, show Time Machine backups in the menu bar. We kind of like to have that turned on because it shows this little wee Time Machine icon right up here in the menu bar. And this is a really quick way to kind of just double check when your last backup occurred and to which device. And it also allows us to go and do a manual backup. So for example, if I just completed that 40-page work document or a big keynote, or I've just finished editing some photos, and I want to make sure that this Mac is backed up right then and there, you can choose backup now. One of the other things that we are looking at here is we're going to now restore some files here. So on the desktop here, I've got a folder called Old Pictures. I have a few documents over here on how to build a pizza oven and things of that nature. And we're going to simulate an oopsie moment. And what we're going to do here is I am going to go into this and go, all right, well, I've finished working on these two files here, and I'm going to permanently delete them from the Mac. So I'm going to select Move to Trash, and then I'm going to empty the trash. So emptying this trash here permanently deletes your files from the Mac. And now that we've got these files missing, I've suddenly realized, holy smokes, I really need that document back, that document back. What do I do about it? If I did not have a backup, this would be going to data recovery services. which we do offer if you are in a bind that way as well. But if you've got a time machine backup, we can go through and use Time Machine's feature called Enter Time Machine to go and get these files back. So I'm going to just mouse up to the Time Machine icon in our menu bar. I'm going to click it. And one of the options here we have is Enter Time Machine. So when we click Enter Time Machine, Time Machine is going to do its job here, and it's going to open up a Finder window. This is the same Finder window that is on my Mac. And what I'm interested in here is I deleted some of those features. On the side here where it says today, that is the current state of the backup. What we are interested in using is the arrow button that points up. And I'm going to go back one day, and you will see here that I now have the old pictures folder and the building a pizza oven and this other document called FAO6. I want to click the files that I'm looking for. And you will notice that on the bottom here, it will say restore. If I click restore at this point, you'll see that it brings me back to the current date, and it has put the files back on my desktop, and I can sleep soundly now going like, oh, great, I've got my files back. I can move on with my day. Using that same technique, we can go back even further. And this is why it's important to have those automatic backups turned on, because the more backups you have, the more options you have to go and find, let's say, a file that you were editing at a previous date. Or if you did delete something a couple of months ago and you go, holy Hannah, I need to get that file back, we can do so. We again just go up to Enter Time Machine. And if you've got a long list of backups, as you can see on the sidebar here, it's showing me all the hourly backups that I have made from yesterday to now. So this is a very handy way to do this. One of the other options that you have in this as well, when you are entered into Time Machine, is just like in Finder, you can kind of browse around applications, desktop, and documents. And you'll see here, sorry about the glitch in there, folks, but we'll get that sorted out as soon as we can. There's a little, there's a little magnifying glass up in the top corner. This is another way that we can use to search for the file that we're looking for. And it all starts with picking the documents or the place or location that you believe you had that stored, and then clicking at the contents here, picking a time that you are looking for, whether it's yesterday, a month ago, and you can search important documents in the documents folder, and you can go back in time and select that as well. We're going to just get out of here for a moment because I'm pretty sure that's acting up a little bit. We'll have that sorted out at some point.
Yeah. I've got a question on behalf of Linda Sigurdsson here, Seabass. Linda asked the question, can you show how to restore an email from Time Machine? Now, I know we may not have one prepared, but that's something we all often find ourselves in, having deleted an email we need to recover. So would you be able to just sort of speak to that a little bit and provide some insights for Linda?
So let me just kind of recap there a bit. For restoring emails on the newer operating systems, Monterey and Ventura, it's kind of changed a bit. And I haven't gone through all of the setups on how to restore that. But on previous operating systems from Apple, using Time Machine was usually for emails to restore them. You would open up Apple Mail, just like I have on the screen here, and we would select Enter Time Machine. Now, this might glitch out again, but I'm just going to double check here. If we select Enter Time Machine, you should notice that Apple Mail is the program that we're attempting to recover from. I'm just going to stretch that out a little bit bigger. And you will see that Apple Mail is open, and we have different time machines that we can back up from, right? So essentially, as of today, I have a couple of, let's see here. If I wanted to click or recover something from my important mailbox, I could do so here. And if I found a file here, let's see if I can go back to yesterday at 3:20, you'll see that it goes back in time here, and you would try to find the email that resided on your Mac, and then you would click restore. Now, unfortunately, I don't have anything to show on that, but the idea here is that if you open up Apple Mail in this manner, you should be able to find the old emails from the On My Mac section. Now, I just want to have a quick chat about that because email is a little bit of a different beast. I mentioned that email is stored typically, let's say like stuff like Gmail, Outlook, and iCloud Mail. When you receive emails, that data is usually stored up at the post office at that company. So for example, when you receive a new recipe email or something like that, that file goes up to the post office and is usually stored there. It means that that is not technically on your computer yet, unless you have opened up Apple Mail. And let's say I take this one here where it says the Bay. I can take that and drag that down to this folder. And that means that I've taken that mail or that letter from the post office at Apple's iCloud Mail, and I've brought it home to my Mac, and I've decided to store it here on my Mac. So now that this mail, or this particular one, lives on my Mac, this will be backed up with the Time Machine backup. If it is just in your inbox, it means that if you delete that mail there, you're going to have to go into your service provider, like gmail.com, outlook.com, or iCloud.com, and you're going to have to look at the trash up there. The takeaway is that if you store it in this manner, or your email client is set up to download all mail automatically, then we can use Time Machine in the manner I just showed to do so. I hope that answers your question there. One of the last things that we're going to talk about is why a backup drive is useful when you are buying a new computer, or if you want to migrate some old user data and products from your old Mac to a new one, or even just from that Time Machine backup. When you get a new Mac, one of the first options that a new Mac is going to ask you for, it's going to ask you to pick your name, pick your country, and the next step after that is going to be, would you like to transfer your data from your old Time Machine backup to the new computer. This will happen when you first get the new Mac, and it's one of the options. This will bring pretty much everything over from the old one, with the exception of a few things. For example, if you had an old 2011 iMac running on an old Adobe software, or an old accounting software, or very common old versions of Microsoft, when you do a data restore from one of those time machine backups, some of those programs might be too old to run on the new one. So I just wanted to kind of preface that ahead of time. And again, that's a great opportunity to come into the shop and see one of us here, to get a little bit of guidance on that, to kind of find out if some of those apps are going to work or not. So always pay us a visit, and we'd be happy to help in that regard. All right. What other questions you got for us?
Nice. All right. So I've been holding on to this one for a little bit from Kevin, but Kevin asked a great question, and we come across this one in the store regularly. So Kevin's asking, can you use the same drive for different computers backups? We have 2 laptops and 1 iMac. Would Kevin be able to use the same drive for multiple Mac time machine backups?
The answer to that is yes. In our household, or actually more my parents, they've got 2 Macs and 1 hard drive. But what we had to do, and now it's a great question actually, you can use 1 hard drive because but you just have to make sure it's a large enough hard drive to hold all of that data. So for example, when you are choosing a drive, the first thing is you want to make sure the drive has all the right connectors for the Macs that you have. Number 2, you want to make sure that that hard drive has enough room and then some to contain the backups from both Macs. My general rule of thumb is this. If I have, let's say I've got an iMac at home and it's a 1 terabyte drive. So for that Mac, the general best practice is, if you got a 1 terabyte hard drive in your iMac, you want to basically have at least a 2 terabyte drive to hold all the data from it. If you are using that drive to store to, you want to take that same approach. So if I've got a laptop that's got a 256 gig hard drive, then I want to make sure I've got at least 512 or another terabyte there to hold its backups. So the answer is yes, you can set that up for 2 computers with 1 drive, but just be mindful, that's all your eggs in one basket too. So it's not a bad idea to consider having a separate drive for each at that point too. So great question.
Brilliant. Thanks, Seabass. So we'll group a couple questions together here. So this one is, can stickies or notes be restored using Time Machine? And along with that one, if there are multiple users on a Mac, so more than 1 user, would Time Machine back up both users on each profile, or would it back up the profile only that the Time Machine restore was initiated on?
Now, you noticed a moment ago when I was in my session, Time Machine backs up the entire computer, all of the user accounts and things of that nature. So each account will have, let's say in our house, we've got my roommate Chris and myself. We have 1 iMac that has 2 user accounts on it. Now, when you run a Time Machine backup, it backs up both accounts. If you want to restore something or a file that you've deleted, like stickies or something like that, you would have to go sign into the account and then run enter Time Machine from within that account, because the other user doesn't have access to that user account. So for example, if I deleted my stickies or I made a mess of that and I wanted to recover that, the first thing is you would have to know where that file or this where stickies is stored. Stickies was like an early version of Notes, and it's been used on the Mac for quite a while. Stickies is stored in a little hidden file called libraries. The long and short, Stickies is an example of one product that might require a little bit more searching. And so that would be the time to come into the shop here and get that sorted out, because that's a little bit of a different one. So restoring files from Time Machine for certain Apple products, like Apple Mail, like with using Finder and whatnot, that's doable. But for other types of files, like a Microsoft database or the Stickies database, which is kind of tucked away, that requires a little bit more effort and a little bit more digging around. But the important part is that it is stored in your backup. It just requires a little bit more finesse or knowledge to go looking for it and getting it out. Hope that helps.
Brilliant, thanks, Seabass. So we're going to do our best to get through the questions, guys. The next one is from Regan. And Regan asked a question that actually we confront pretty much every day in the store, and it's something that we will proactively mention. So Regan's question is, I've been using a drive to back up our family Mac. It's about 5 years old. Currently, it's still working. My backup is really important to me. At what point would you recommend to consider replacing the drive?
For users that have been using Time Machine backups for a while, like the hard drives do have a lot of moving parts. And my personal preferences is anywhere from 5 to 7 years is how long I will use a hard drive for backups. They do wear out over time because they're constantly writing and doing that kind of work. So generally like 5 to 7 years is about how long I would use a drive, and then just kind of refresh it every now and again with a newer one. More often than not, a lot of folks who have been using Time Machine backups for a while are, they're starting to fill them up. So their requirements are, well, heck, I need to kind of upgrade my backup drive to be a little bit larger because I've got, anywhere from 10 to 15 years of backups on there. So that's a great question. And we have drives that are larger to do that. And we might even be able to transfer some of those files over to the new backup as well.
Awesome, thanks, Seabass. Just further to that too, with it being the World Backup Day, we do also have our 1 and 2 terabyte G-Tech Armor drives on special. They are on sale. The 1 terabyte's on sale from $109.99 to $82.49.
That's right.
From $139.99 to $104.99. That promo will be running for the next week or so. So come by and see us. Pick one up because if nothing else, this seminar can serve as a great reminder to keep that backup drive up to date. One thing just to share a little tip from me, Seabass, is I always recommend customers pop the date on the drive using a bit of masking tape, just so then that it's recorded on there. And once it hits that 5 to 7 year threshold, it can be retired and put in the digital filing cabinet and replaced with the next one. That's something I've adopted at home that's helped me keep on top of my backups, because the most important thing here is that the integrity of that backup is right where we want it to be. Absolutely. Because the data is what's most important.
My particular scenario was I was looking for some old photos that I had from my old Mac from back in like 2001 when I was kind of doing band stuff and whatnot. And sometimes keeping these old hard drives around are fantastic because you might come across some of those precious moments in old videos that you didn't, you've forgotten about. Additionally, it's also a good idea if you are done with that drive as well, that you consider bringing it into the shop to get properly recycled. I know kind of having some of those around, I know I've tossed some hard drives now and again when I'm done with them, and thought about it after and went, geez, I just kind of tossed that out the wrong way and still got my data on it. We do offer secure erasure services here for those types of things. So if you do have some old drives that need to be taken care of, pop in the shop and we'll get those taken care of for you as well with the secure erasure.
Thanks, Seabass. So Sonia asked a question, or kind of makes a point. And this was something that we actually wanted to put to the floor. So this is a good timing. So Sonia makes some comments about future seminar topics. And we encourage everyone to provide us with seminar topics. This is something that we'd like to continue moving forward and do more frequently. So if you guys do have any ideas of subjects that you'd like to cover, please email us at seminar@simply.ca. Pop in the subject line that it's for seminar ideas, and myself and Seabass will do our best to put content together that you guys want to see and want to learn about. So that email, one more time, is seminar@simply.ca. Let us know what you want to cover, and we'll do our best to put that content together for you. But moving on to another question, Deborah asks a great one here. Can I leave my backup drive connected to my laptop at all times, even when I turn on and off again? And I'd probably extend that question a little bit on behalf of Deborah and actually answer that for the desktops as well. So are you able to leave your Time Machine drive permanently connected to either your desktop or your MacBook?
You actually can. The drives are basically, particularly GTEC drives, they're pretty robust. They, all drives can fail at some point, but the idea here is if you have them permanently connected all the time and Time Machine is set up automatically, you've got a really great backup strategy in place there, because it's backing up often and gives you a lot of different points to go back to in that regard. You're not going to hurt the drive, and you can connect those to the laptops and towers or iMacs all the time. I personally do. I've had it on, well, gosh, for gotta be at least 7 years now. And I have no problem with that. You're not going to hurt the drive. They do wear down over time, but it's your data. And that's the most important part that we want to do. So the more often it's connected, including laptops, fantastic. I will say one thing for laptop users though. If you are going to connect it all the time, that's fantastic. You just got to be mindful that if you are not connected to power, that drive is going to take, it's going to pull power from your battery a little bit more often. So you just have to be mindful that you might have a shorter, you'll drain your battery quicker with that drive connected if it is not connected to power. But yes, do connect them often and always.
Awesome, thanks, Seabass. So we'll do our best to group a couple of questions together here. So Ross and James and Sonia have passed some comments over email backup and restore. So Ross, if we're able to do another screen share, we'd love to see how we can go and pull up old emails from Time Machine. And further to that question, Ross has asked, are emails in Outlook backed up in the same way when we use Time Machine?
Again, when it comes to emails, you really want to get your head around where is my digital stuff and where does it live? Outlook and Apple Mail can be configured in a couple of different ways. If your email client is configured to download the email messages and attachments to the Mac, then a Time Machine backup should include those. The trick is you are going to have to, Outlook operates just a little bit differently. It will restore the data to the Mac, but if you, let's say, deleted a bunch of emails and whatnot, if you restore from a previous backup, you are restoring the content as it was from that date. Any emails that came after that date will not be included in the backup. Outlook might have some other ways to do it, but I'm not particularly knowledgeable on that one. The takeaway is that it can restore the original database to the Microsoft folder, but it does need a little bit more TLC to get that sorted. I think that was it. Apple does it similarly as well. The big thing is you got to just double check where your data is. Is it at the post office at Outlook, or is your organization, or is it local on the Mac?
Thanks, Seabass. Louise Lister asked a great question. Are you able to use an external hard drive to back up an iPad or iOS device? If not, what other options would you recommend for backing up the iPhone and the iPad?
That's actually a great question. I get lots of folks who come in one-on-one sessions and simply at home sessions where they think they're doing a backup, but they are not. When it comes to iPhones and iPads, we have two options. Before they had iCloud, we would take our iPads and iPhones and we would physically connect them with a cable to the Mac, just like in the old days. It wasn't that long ago. We had a program called iTunes, and one of the functions of iTunes was to physically connect the Mac to your iPad or your iPhone and sync them. And one of the options in there was to back up the iPad or the iPhone. Now the cool thing about that is if you did a backup to your computer of your iPad or your iPhone, because that backup resides on the computer, that would also be included with a time machine backup. So kind of handy, you have a double backup in a roundabout way. If you did not do it that way, then you have to choose on your iPhone or your iPad, iCloud backup as an option. iCloud backups were a little tricky. You have to be mindful that, let's see here. You do have to be mindful that the iCloud account has enough storage assigned to it to contain those backups. So for example, I own an iPhone SE that has 256 gigs of data on it. Now, at some point when I was just starting off with the phone, I used up my free 5 gigabytes of data that came with every Apple user. So in my particular scenario, I did have to start upping my iCloud storage in that regard. So I chose the 200 gigabyte option because that was closest to what my phone was. And that allows my phone to be backed up to iCloud in its entirety, which is very, very handy. This is very handy because if you are out and about, let's say you're going on a trip and you happen to break your phone or it gets lost or stolen, if you have an iCloud backup, or if you've got a backup on your computer from that, then you'll be able to restore that data to the phone and at least get some of the data back. Most people have opted for the iCloud storage because it is constantly backing up as it is connected to networks, particularly through cellular, or if you are at home and connected to your internet there.
Thanks, Seabass. So lots of people are asking about iCloud and specifically where iCloud fits in the backup story. So Bruce has passed comment on it, and he's mentions the fact that the devices are persistently asking for upgrading of the storage. So can we speak a little bit to where iCloud fits in the backup picture, what it does, what it's backing up,
Yeah,
what it isn't, that kind of thing.
absolutely. So iCloud is a collection of software and services from Apple that links our devices together. It is also, and one of those features is iCloud backup. When that is turned on, that's backing up the entire phone. iCloud backup is for phones and iPads. iCloud, in respect to how it backs up and syncs its services, every Apple device, if you sign in with your Apple ID is what links your devices together. When you go into the settings section or system preferences on your Mac, you will be presented with a list of different things. One of them is iCloud Drive, contacts, and a whole number of different applications that can synchronize between them. When you turn those on, it means, like, let's say for the contacts or calendars or something like that. If you turn something like that on, it means any contact that I put on my phone will be stored up in iCloud, and then it will also be stored up, it'll also be downloaded to your other devices as well. One of the other ways that I very much use iCloud Drive is if you turn that on, in your Finder window, you will have a little section called iCloud. When you click that, that is a spot that you can safely copy a file to, and it will be available and stored up at iCloud as well. So you can pick it up on any device that you want. Or additionally, you can go to iCloud.com and see and retrieve that device as well. If you explore some of the iCloud settings on your Mac, under System Preferences, Apple ID, you will be presented with all of the software services that can make use of that iCloud storage that resides up at Apple's servers. I kind of hope that there's a lot to that, and that's something we'll probably maybe come up with another seminar, because it's a big topic for all of that. So I might stay tuned for something along the lines in the future on that. But I can tell you this, that moving files back and forth to and from cloud is pretty easy, but you do have to kind of make sure that it's set up correctly in that regard. And just another note on that, iCloud can be set up to optimize or download storage. For users of laptops that maybe don't have a lot of storage in that regard, like maybe 128 or 256, it's not hard to kind of store, it's not hard to fill that space. And offloading some of that data to iCloud could be advantageous to kind of help you stay on top of storing, help you stay on top of how much storage you're using on your Mac as well. Hope that helps. You guys got good questions today. This is awesome.
Brilliant. Thanks, Seabass. Obviously, slightly conscious of time, but we've got some great questions in the chat here. So let's go on a little bit. So I'm going to give you two at once here.
Okay.
So Margot's question, if storage on an external hard drive is full, is there a way you can delete backups material to make room? And then further to that, Dennis has asked, if I buy a G drive for my backup, can I cancel my iCloud subscription? And if I do, what happens to my data in iCloud?
Ooh, that's a good one. And it's something that you do not want to just start flipping switches on all willy-nilly. It's something you want to plan out. So if I'm understanding you correctly, if you've got an external hard drive, let's address the first one. Do not delete backups from your time machine backup drive. That's an important one. The reason why we don't want to do that is a time machine kind of keeps a database or a running list. And when you go in there and you start deleting things in that regard, you run the risk of messing up that database and therefore making it difficult for Time Machine to go back in time and find the stuff that you're looking for. So I really don't encourage, there's a lot of risk there. Don't do it. It's just not something to play with. The second part of the question was,
Yeah, so Dennis went on to ask that if he purchased the G drive and used it for the purposes of Time Machine, would they then be in a position to cancel their iCloud subscription? And if they did, what would happen to their data in iCloud?
good question. So I have had customers that have had this come up. So if you want to decide, if you're considering not using iCloud anymore, you do not cancel your service until you have downloaded all of the content from there. When you turn off certain types of features in iCloud, it will ask you, do you want to save a copy on this Mac? And you're going to want to select yes. If you do not, and you just say, no, I'm just going to turn that service off, and you stop using it, iCloud will hold that data on Apple servers for roughly, I think it's about 30 days, I think, before it's permanently deleted. So what is important if you are considering making that kind of decision? You're going to want to make sure that the Mac is set up to download all the content, or iCloud Photos is designed to download that content all to the Mac, where you can store it somewhere else. Where the trick is, though, you've got to make sure you've got enough data to do it. It's doable, but I highly recommend you come in for a one-on-one or CR service counter. That's something you want to plan out before you actually pull the trigger on that. But the big thing is making sure you download the content first. And additionally, you could go to iCloud.com and access your data that way and download photos or files from that method as well. Good question though, but do plan that out and get some guidance on that beforehand.
Great answer. Okay, so we'll go to our last question, which is from Judith. Judith is a bit of a two-parter, but I think this will be on a lot of people's minds. So Judith has an old Time Machine, which has information from a previous computer that was not transferred to the new laptop. Judith's asking, would they be able to use that drive to back up the new system? They don't want to transfer any of the previous data. So first part is, how do they erase the previous data from the storage drive? Or would Judith be able to just connect that drive and it would pick up where it left off from the backups on the previous machine onto the new ones?
That's a good question. And if I'm understanding you right, you've got an old system that had an old backup and you want to continue, and you've transferred the data to the new one, and you want to continue using that drive.
That's how I've understood it, okay. Seabass.
When you are doing you've got an old system, you've got an old Time Machine backup, and we're using that old hard drive on the new system, when that old drive is connected to the new system, we have an opportunity right then and there where Time Machine may present us with an option it will ask us, would you like this new computer to inherit the old backup system so that this new computer keeps the old data and kind of appends it? If you do not choose that option, it will start a brand new backup and back up an entirely different, or set up an entirely new machine as a backup. at that point. So if you are interested in trying to keep the old backup records accessible on the new Mac, we want to make sure that when that new drive is connected to the new Mac, sorry, the old drive is connected to the Mac, that we choose inherit. If you miss that opportunity, I don't think it can be redone again.
Perfect. Thanks, Seabass. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much to everyone that's asked questions. I'm sure it's benefited all attendees. And thank you for those that have made some suggestions for future seminar topics. That email again is seminar@simply.ca. Please send your suggestions through to there, just because it allows me and Seabass to save them, review them, whereas messages in the chat with Zoom are not necessarily saved. So please fire through all your suggestions to seminar@simply.ca. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending.
All right, guys. See you soon.
Thanks.